I mean, the macro market's flip-flopping. That's what we start with.
It's certainly possible that we have higher than expected June inflation, but I think what's way more important is what happens going forward.
The market could go up or down like 3% based on this number. Elon sent that letter on Friday that he's attempting to terminate the deal. The Tesla stock went up, right away in after hours on Friday, and had a bit of a rough day yesterday, as much of the macro market did, especially the tech stocks, and all the EV stocks were down, 5 to 7%, it seems like yesterday. Most people, I think, seem to think this is more of a negotiating tactic for a lower market cap.
To me, it seems like the most likely situation is just that he really is skeptical of the bots. And then on top of that, you've got like a very significantly deteriorating macro market. I kind of sense he'd rather just walk away from it completely. I really do think that's more likely rather than, this is just purely negotiating. But, I'm not sure. And it could just be a total blunder as well. He kind of made an offer at the exact wrong time and didn't realize how much of a distraction from Tesla it would be.
It's clear that, the bots and spam issue is much worse than Twitter has let on. It's crazy that there's this conspiracy theory going around that he did it as like a distraction so he could sell Tesla shares. Matt went to visit Munro and Associates yesterday, right?
We saw the Rivian R1T. There was like this Chinese vehicle, which was pretty sweet. Actually, it was called the Skywell. Like, to me, that was one of the like my biggest takeaways was like this Skywell company. Like, if they could produce like a $30,000 to $40,000 vehicle that was of a similar quality to what we drove yesterday, I feel like they could gain a decent amount of market share. There was the big Starship Failure, the static fire test that they had yesterday. Kind of surprising. It seems like from Elon's reaction that was much worse than he was expecting.
But it's good that they make these things happen. That's why they have these tests for, right? They don't want these things to happen when they're actually doing like a production launch.
The one thing that was drilled into me as like an investment banking analyst is that if you're going to use multiples analysis, then you have to assume that the multiples are going to decrease as you go forward in time.
One reference I like to look at is like, what's the biggest companies in the world? Apple right now, and it's like at its most mature point, in my opinion. Their PE right now is 24. If you're thinking Tesla 2030, maybe the PE would be 20 to 25 range. If they're competent, like I think they are, they're making adjustments to maybe they have their stated public zero COVID policy, but I don't think they would shut down the economy again like they did.
Now we're in the situation where like Germany is completely beholden to Russia, with their energy policy, and frankly, they've overbuilt some renewables, they've underbuilt a lot of transmission, and they're in the situation now where they have to kind of fall back onto coal rather than nuclear. The whole situation was so avoidable. I don't think it's necessarily going to impact Tesla's production out of Germany. It might marginally impact their costs. My hope is that it's actually kind of on this continued downward trajectory, because if it's actually increasing sequentially in the face of these rising rates, that's a very bad sign. For those who are not familiar, this is a purely kind of like GAAP accounting metrics. It's based on the fact that Tesla, for the first 15 years of their existence, they had negative net income. The concept of retained earnings is that as your negative earnings kind of accumulates over time, you have a tax benefit where if you do flip to profitability going forward, you don't have to pay those taxes, but there's a deadline on those. You have to use the tax benefit like for 2 years or more. I thought this was coming and it has just never come. So maybe this is the right quarter that it finally does come.